Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Wonderful that you could join me. Tonight, we're going to talk about Brazil's Bigfoot creatures, hairy ape like beasts, and tongues ripped out by creatures with hands. Now, the Brazilian Bigfoot, known as the Coriquan, reportedly caused many problems for locals in March and April of 1937. For 3 long weeks, this creature was said to have caused havoc with tribespeople and farmers alike. Now, the owners of the cattle explained that a great number of animals had been attacked or taken by some unknown creature, which showed great strength. In all, over 100 heads of cattle were destroyed. According to reports, the creature, or the Curiquan, is a true giant, described as very tall and bulky, with long, shaggy, hairy coat, a flat head, and a large brow, with long, powerful arms and very human-like hands and feet. The footprints, although human in look, did not show claws or talons within the track. Some residents of the region report the creature as the Mapanguara, which is also an upright, hairy cryptid and has a terrible howl. And reports and folklore go back hundreds of years in the region. Whatever had killed the animals had superhuman strength, as in some of the cases the tongues of the cattle were ripped out almost as if by hands, said a local spokesman. Many people in the district claim to have seen the strange ape-like creature, and a number of footprints were also noted and measured. Now, the footprints were human in nature and measured 18 inches in length. Also noted were strange howls and wails coming from the jungle, not known to the people who have a vast knowledge of the local wildlife. Now, generations of tribespeople speak of a strange, hairy creature that is spotted by people in the jungles and forests in the region. Now, no one here is claiming the creatures reported are responsible for the strange mutilations. We are merely reporting that some of the local farmers and tribesmen seem to think there is a connection between the two events. Now, Brazil is also known for chupacabra reports, and we've discussed them in earlier videos, and many UFO encounters and strange light. Is it the magic of the place that makes this a strange and unusual country with very weird phenomena? Or just a natural coincidence between events, as the jungles and forests are so dense, there could be an undiscovered human relative or a new species of apes the locals are reporting that is unfamiliar to man, hiding out within that dark canopy. I'll leave that for the experts to decide. What piqued my interest was the description of the creature, and it hasn't changed for over 350 years. And the people in the area have a vast knowledge of what is natural to their own area. They know the noises and sounds that the animals make. What they are hearing and seeing is something they cannot recognise or identify in any way. A little bit like the UK witnesses, which to me indicates an unknown animal or creature of some kind, but that's just my opinion. Let's take a look at the witnesses' account and see what you think after hearing them. An ape-like creature is reported in Angol in 2006. Now, Mr. Lewis Beatty, a well-known jeweller and native artisan of the Ninth Region, retold a strange experience that befell his son-in-law in the winter of 2006. Now, Lewis's son-in-law, who was a truck driver by trade with an erratic schedule, could not believe what he saw on one of his usual routes. And he was driving along the road at night, almost midnight. The truck was travelling on a stretch of road he often travelled on. On that day, he wasn't carrying an assistant or anyone else along for the ride, so there are no other witnesses to back up his claims or add any further details. He does remember he was driving at an average speed without anything unusual happening, and it was an ordinary journey up until that point. Now, there were no cars present, so he had an uninterrupted look at the strange thing up ahead in the road. And he says, there was a strange animal on my right on the blacktop. It was very still and had the appearance of an ape with short arms and long legs. He managed to hit the brakes about 10 metres from this animal, but the simian creature did not make a move, other than slowly turning its head towards the truck. That's when the driver noticed that its eyes were sparkling red and that the configuration of fur on its body was very odd, covered by something similar to short, whitish, fluffy feathers. Now, the truck driver felt a shudder of fear, which is understandable faced with such a strange situation and a weird-looking creature impossible to explain away. He stopped the engine and allowed several seconds to elapse. All the while, the creature was just staring at him as he quaked with fear. The animal walked slowly across the road, never taking its eyes off the driver. As the witness recalls, the simian entity was thick-set and stood approximately over 1 metre tall. It had a head proportioned to its body and a large muzzle. It made no sound whatsoever, and at no time did its extremities touch the pavement, and it maintained itself upright throughout, like a small man. Pardon the ice cream van outside if you can hear it. Now, the driver was able to get a good look at the creature and kept his headlights on at all times. He added that the creature's attitude was defiant throughout the event, even though it stood there passive. Now, numerous tribes see a Brazilian Bigfoot in 2007, and this was in a newspaper in Rio Branco, Brazil. And it says, members of various tribes in the Amazon have spoken throughout the years of seeing a giant creature that roams the rainforest. Even tribes that have no contact with each other claim to have seen the creature, known locally as the roaring animal or the fetid beast. Accounts of the giant animal are widespread and consistent, and those who claim to have seen it describe it as part human and part creature that is aggressive towards others and emits a powerfully unpleasant odour. Just 1 second while my mate Vinny drives past. Right. 2 athletes see a strange biped in 2001. 2 men training for the biathlon were running along the forested trails of Cerro to Mal, and also a gaucho passing through the area on horseback are among many of the witnesses to the strange creature, who local reports to have been seen some 6 kilometres east of Rosario de la Frontera. Many have claimed running into the strange hairy beast, which has been the cause of over 20 reports since cattleman Rogelio Martinez made a detailed report to the authorities in 2001. Now, according to the established facts, the gaucho, Senor Posadas, was in charge of a farm owned by an agribusinessman. I presume that's a farm, posh word for farmer. And the farmer's name was Oscar Perez. And Senor Posadas was crossing the sector, which is high and densely forested area, in the early hours when he ran into a strange being standing over 2 meters tall. It was covered in hair from head to foot. It had long arms ending in sharp claws, an oval-shaped head, and an enormous mouth with menacing fangs. Now, Posadas got off his mount and reached for the shotgun on the saddle, but the hominid had vanished by the time he looked up again. Now, however, biathlete Humberto Souza, 52, who has won over 100 trophies in national, regional and provincial competitions, did not hesitate to make it known of his extraordinary experience. He says, "We were training with Susan Romana that day, and we'd been out on the trails for most of the day. At around 5 o'clock, we had run down the track, and upon reaching a curve, we felt and heard the loud crushing of branches from the hill. We stopped to see what could be making the noise, and amid the foliage we saw it briefly. We both saw a large animal, which looked like some kind of ape, moving with great agility. Susanna and I exchanged glances as though to confirm what we had seen, and to make sure it wasn't just a product of our imagination. We remained still with our eyes riveted to the place where we had seen it jump, and it became lost in the vegetation. We tried to listen, but everything remained silent. Suddenly, all of the birds flew away, as though fleeing from something. And once again, with the same speed as before, it jumped. It was like a giant ape. We were scared and decided to run as quickly as possible towards the unforested area. However, that thing seemed to follow us, running parallel to us some 10 metres down the slope, through the wilderness, which is impossible for a human to do, given the thickness of the vegetation. Through the leaves and branches we could see its enormous silhouette, and every so often could hear how timber was violently shattered and broken. which led us to believe that the creature's weight must be tremendous. Souza, an electrician by trade, is a well-respected man in this city by virtue of his career, both as an individual and a sportsman. I had heard and read people's stories about this beast before, and I'd laugh about it, and I'll admit to not believing anything that was said. What's more, I ascribed all of those tales to some sort of collected hysteria or psychosis. However, now I have no doubt that what people said were true, since I have also now experienced that terror in person. It was evident that this critter was following us, and I therefore feared it, and I feared that it would attack us. I felt fear for my companion, and I asked her to run as fast as she could. I told myself that if the situation reached the brink, I would give my life for her. That's how serious the situation was. We ran and ran, always feeling that this animal was running beside us, shadowing us amongst the dense woods. In a given area where the vegetation isn't quite so dense and the possibility of observing it was greater, we stopped to look around us. But the noise stopped, and the jumping shadow that followed us had vanished. Every time we stopped, it stopped. In the distance, we could see that the birds had all flocked together, as if frightened by something. Souza added that he customarily trains at Sierra Tamal in the company of a group of sportsmen. This time there was only two of us, and sadly it was our turn to undergo a traumatic experience. In my 30 years of covering these trails, I've never seen anything like it. Now, in 2006, in one of the local Argentinian newspapers, it stated that the police hunt for a mysterious creature with big feet. Now, a farmer stepped out on his patio to take a leak and got more than he bargained for. As he stood there, he saw to his astonishment, off in the distance, a figure of around 6 feet tall that was covered in black hair. Whatever it was, the figure easily jumped 2 wire fences without touching them. The dairy farmer compared the leaps to that worthy of an Olympic athlete. The next evening, another farmer in the same area witnessed a similar black figure. The farmer noted the way it walked and the way that it moved. It walked calmly and kept stopping and starting again as he headed towards the mountains, he said. Argentina's Environmental Police Commissioner and head of Unit Number 5, Marcelo Diaz, has quite the hunt on his hands. At first, he assumed it was no more than a gorilla or a monkey, and he would clear up this mystery quickly. Though how a gorilla would have made it to the area without being noticed is a puzzle even to Diaz. None of the monkeys anyone can think of matched the footprints found in the area he was walking. In fact, no animals came close, except humans. The differing characteristics between these footprints and human footprints is the size. Diaz explained that the foot tracks were in a smooth area and others were in the bush. They are similar to those of a human foot, but we discard that they are of a person by the great size, which has intrigued the policeman in charge of the operation. On the 22nd of March, 10 officers and 5 experts looked for the strange figure towards the mountains. One of the farmers who first saw the figure joined them for the day, and as they were walking along, he heard a noise behind them after exploring for a number of hours. When they investigated the area, where the noise had come from, they discovered the tracks. 5 policemen and 3 experts planned to follow the footprints found towards Banda Estes, a suburban area. Now, the commissioner explained that they will search at night. The reports were all during the evening hours. They will be using night vision devices that will also record. No one can agree on what's been seen, but rumours suggest a Bigfoot, Yeti, or Sasquatch-type creature, while some residents of the area ridicule and tease the witnesses of the strange creature. Some can't rule out that it might be some kind of primate. Residents worry that if the reports are true, a gorilla of similar size could present a danger to the community and its children. Now, Samuel is a jungle guide, and he has worked on many of the Discovery Channel's Mysteries and Monsters TV show. And when meeting with some crew members who were filming an episode on the Brazilian Bigfoot, Samuel explained that his father could clearly recount what he'd been told by his own father, Samuel's grandfather, about a terrifying encounter with the Mapinguari in the remote border region of Brazil and Venezuela many decades ago. Now, the grandfather said that he came face to face with an unearthly beast when he was staying in the jungle one night. He was convinced it was a beast known locally as the Mapinguari. The strange beast has entered his remote cabin at night. It was so large that when it stood upright, roaring at him, it lifted the wooden ceiling. Apparently, the creature knocked the man to the ground with one powerful lunge of its arm, breaking his jaw. He believes he was only able to save himself, having reached for a gun which he used to fire a round directly into the shaggy-haired monster that fled, leaving a trail of blood. Now, Giobaldo Catriana, 27-year-old Indian, says there is no doubt that the Mapinguari is real. He claims to have seen one about 3 years ago. He was hunting in the village near an area that his tribe calls the Cave of the Mapinguari. It was coming towards the village making a noise, he said, in a recent interview on the tribe's reservation in the western Amazon. It stopped when it got near me. That's when the bad smell made me dizzy and tired. I fainted, and when I came to, the Mapinguari was gone. Catriana's father, Lucas, confirmed the account. He said that when his son took him back to the site of the encounter, he saw a cleared pathway where the creature had departed, as if a bodybuilder had rolled through and knocked down all the trees and vines. Another 70-year-old, I think it's Joe Baptista Azevedo, says he saw a Mapinguari 20 years ago after a 45-day canoe ride from the nearest village. I was working by the river when I heard a scream, a horrible scream. Suddenly, something looking like a man came out of the forest. He was all covered in hair, and he was walking on 2 legs, and thank God he did not come towards us. I will always remember that day. Descriptions of the beast vary wildly. It has the body of a giant bear. Some say the face appears monkey or even human-like. Some people report a trailing cloud of flying beetles and a roar like endless thunder. Some legends even attribute it the powers of the supernatural, and some say it can speak. To see it is to come face to face with the devil himself. But all accounts agree that this creature is tall, 2 meters or about 7 feet in height. Its upright bulk is disconcerting. It looks human-like when it stands on 2 legs. It emits a strong odour, extremely nauseating. A disabling smell, some people called it, like garlic or a fetid peccary. And that it has thick, matted, red or black fur covering a hard skeleton that makes it all the more impervious to bullets and arrows. I think Google Translate went strange then. But it means is, if you shoot it or you fire at it, the arrow seems to bounce off. And we hear that about the North American Sasquatch as well. Now, the word Kurunkuian was first written about in 1664 in an explorer's journal written by a Jesuit priest, where he briefly mentions the Kurunkuian to be a nation of gigantic men who are 16 feet tall, much adorned with gold on their heads and noses, to which all others pay their respect. Now, the name is more commonly used today to describe a regional crypto-hominid that are accused of slaughtering local ranchers' cattle, wrenching the tongues out, but abandoning the remainder of the carcass. As already mentioned, close to 1,000 reports of strange animal mutilations featuring cattle and wild animals have been happening across the country for decades, each village blaming either a cryptid, an alien, or an unknown creature as the culprit. Now, as we know, the stories of hominids of unknown name and origin are found in all countries the world holds. And as we share the stories across the globe, we not only save these accounts and experiences from disappearing over the years, but it also shows us how, regardless of culture or faith, hairy, upright hominids are reported every day by ordinary people. Now, for centuries before people could tap a button for the latest news, before Google, these stories were still told. People, who could never have met have the same hairy, upright figure that lives out in nature and is a mystery to us humans on one continent or another within their history. Maybe one day they will be spoken about in every country as we unravel some of the threads woven within that mystery. Until then, all we can do is collect them for the future reference in the hopes of one day maybe solving this puzzle. So until next time, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you're all well. Good night.